a lot of hope you'll somehow cross into the 2,500 range and finish that title. So I'd say it's a small possibility, but I'm not giving up hope yet. Finally completing that lifetime of chess.
That's right. And it's likely they will change. I don't know. They may change the rule and make it a little bit harder.
I would agree.
as they often do.
Yeah, and it's that sort of thing where they'll say the GM is 2,600, and with my ELO that would become inaccessible. It would just not be an accessible marker to reach 2,600 as the GM. If they say IM 2,500 and GM 2,600, there you go. I'll stay at the IM level.
Okay, all right. So I think we can get started. So welcome everyone. So today we have Michael here is going to run the masterclass for all of you. So feel free to participate. So this is meant to be interactive, and so use this opportunity to ask questions as you have this opportunity with the master here. Okay, so you can share your screen and you can get started.
Okay. So, hi everyone. The class today is about engines, engine technologies, and chess engines, and I want to talk about the at least 3 different engines. The engine you see on chess.com, the engine, the Stockfish, and the Leela. And the idea is how you can make engines practicable in your own chess. When I started playing chess about 2003, engines were mostly kind of exotic, and they were used only by very strong grandmasters to analyze the game, because the output of an engine would be a little bit unreliable, and it was rare that engines were used in analysis. Even a new in chess publication oftentimes didn't run through an engine. But by now, engines have become kind of the domain of almost all the players. And my view is that club players or non-professionals can greatly benefit from engines, so long as you understand which engines to choose and what you can do with an engine, how you can actually improve your game. So first, let me try to talk about the engine on chess.com. I try to run every chess game that I play on chess.com through an engine. And this is often very useful because an engine will be able to give you the sort of results which you would have never guessed otherwise. It would tell you things that you would have never really been able to figure out on your own. The engines have always been good at recognizing tactics, and so this will invariably be true. That checking tactics and middle game tactics will almost always be useful with an engine. So here's one example from my game. Let me see if I can find it here. I'm going to have to end the screen share. I'll turn the screen share in just 1 second back on. I'm having trouble finding this game in chess.com. Sorry about that. I'm a little bit unprepared. Well, let me see if I can return to this game in chess.com. Um, I'm having a little bit of trouble finding it at this point for some reason. Well, let's take a look here at a game from yesterday. This is a game with on chess.com. Let's take a look at the analysis engine and whether the analysis is useful. This is a game I played yesterday against Mohan Dixit. Is the analysis useful here on chess.com engine? Very useful. So I'll run a game report on this game and see if this sort of thing is useful. So if you look through the game report, it will give you all the key features of the middle game position. And generally here, d4, e6, c4, d5, knight f3, knight f6, it's following through a standard semi-Slav. But the engine will give you a lot of comments as to whether the plans make sense. The engine here is oriented mostly at looking at tactics rather than strategy. So the a6 is a well-known move in the position. b3, b5 is not a very famous move, but it is certainly playable. But the engine will show you the tactical resolutions. It doesn't necessarily tell you all of the engine's best moves, but it will show you the tactical resolutions. 94, and the engine says this should have been better for white. Why? It says the main move is bishop to d3 at this point. Bishop to d3 says the engine would have been better for white, but this will run through a tactical resolution. So the tactics here start, and the engine will be very useful in pinpointing tactical resolutions in the middle game. So it is saying that this position greatly favorable to white, something that I did not quite realize during the game. The engine here shows you the tactical resolution. Rook a to c1, it says it's the wrong move, and it says the main move is rook f to c1, which you would realize later on in the game, because after bishop b7, the knight can simply be kicked back. This is something that I did not realize. Would black be okay after knight g3, says the engine, bishop d3, f5? It's not certain. White would kick back the knight with something like c takes d5. And if queen takes d5, then obviously queen c7, and white would hit the knight on g3. So this would be better for white. That's something I realized in the game, and this was the critical moment. Once I played rook a to c1, the position was about even, actually. The engine says bishop b7 is still better for white, but in practice, I think black has survived the opening struggle. Takes. It was only equal out of this position. All of this seemed completely logical. D takes c5, king f7. The game seems to be headed for a draw. And after rook d4, a5, f4, the engine obviously shows you that bishop c6 is the best move, where black is definitely headed toward a draw, or even slightly better, says the engine. Rook d6, if I play, black would play something like rook to c7. And the game probably is heading toward a draw here with a3, rook b8. This looks like it's heading toward draw, in fact, or black even is better. Rook d4, rook c7 looks like it's good for black. My opponent made a slight blunder here. He played rook f d8, and here, of course, takes c6. And this is the key moment in the game. Is black okay? Well, not after rook c8, c7, king e7, but the engine shows you the critical resolution. This position suddenly very bad for black because he loses his queenside pawns. Black lost the game. But okay, what does the engine show? Something I didn't realize during the game. Take a look at what it's saying. I didn't see this during the game. Rook d2. I thought this must be an error. I'll go bishop d4. But take a look what the engine says. Bishop a6, c7, bishop c8. Simply blocking the pawn and preparing to capture on f2. I have to play rook a1, and now bishop b7. This simply hits on g2. I have to go back rook c1, bishop c8, rook a1, bishop b7. It's repetition. So obviously here, my opponent could have easily made a draw, but it was a little bit difficult, the tactics here at the end. And rook d2 is a very instructive point where he had played very well the whole game. With rook d2 could have obviously forced the draw. So this sort of thing, you can only figure out middle game resolutions, or this in this case, an end game resolution, could only have been figured out with the help of an engine. It will greatly help you improve putting all of your games through an engine. Well, you'll see some of the more surprising possibilities. This is quite surprising. I certainly would not have seen this kind of a possibility on my own. Bishop b6 here is even better for black, likely. Rook a2, rook d1. Black probably plays something like a4. What does the engine say? Bishop b7, e4, a4, takes b3. Looks quite good for black. Bishop d4, b2, bishop d4. The game would end in draw here. The engine says king e7, take, and king d7 would end up in a draw. So this is the sort of thing that you would only get with engine analysis. This is a little bit above my tactical competency to be able to have found this remarkable idea, bishop a6, and the bishop returns to stop the passed pawn. I was nearly certain this was winning. It isn't. So that is my first example. Tactical efficiencies can easily be caught with the chess.com engine. This is the only sort of thing that the chess.com will catch all of the tactical errors. They're not often good. The chess.com engines are not often good if you're looking at it at the opening. Obviously, it's not giving you the full picture of the opening here. If you want to study this opening more deeply, you would have to turn on an engine like the Stockfish or the Leela, because the chess.com says e5, for instance, says you should play e5. It would be very complicated. Well, point 113 is not a very useful evaluation because you would have to know specifically how to play the position. Takes. The engine says bishop b2. It is somewhat useful, but only partially useful. You'd have to know a little bit of theory here as to what is going on in this position. White could also take, of course, take, and the chess.com engine will show you all of the positions, but this has to be calculated more precisely. You'd have to put on a better engine. If you play bishop g4, h3, bishop e2, knight e2, this maybe evens out the game. Rook c8, queen b1, but again, it's not very informative. The chess.com engine plus 0.18 is not very informative. The engine is just saying you haven't made any tactical errors, which is true, but it's not telling you the position, right? So the engine is just catching tactical blunders. That is what the chess.com engine is good for. Don't trust the evaluation plus 0.18 means the game is dead drawn. Especially don't believe that you're completely lost. Assume that this is a game and the chess.com engine is intending you to be able to play the tactics correctly. It does not delve on the opening strategies or the strategies of the moves. Only the tactics will be important to this engine. Any questions so far on how to use the chess.com engine and know what essentially it's good for versus what it will not tell you, even if you ask that, analyze the opening for you? It's not very useful. It's a tactics engine. Any questions here? All right, let me talk about Stockfish and how Stockfish work. Stockfish engine is very strong. So this analysis was done with the Stockfish 13 on lead chess. Here I'm just going to show you a lead chess study of the Stockfish engine and what it's good for. So the Stockfish engine, in my estimation, is the strongest tool for analyzing the openings, but it has some limitations. Generally, it is a very firm engine that will tell you the exact moves in the opening. It will give you the firm opening ideas, but you should be aware that the opening may be complicated and they may lead to a middle game. So the Stockfish will tell you something like rough equilibrium out of the opening, but it usually will not tell you, well, what will happen in a game. Take a look at my analysis of the E4, E5 Archangel. So E4, E5, knight F3, knight C6, bishop B5. This is the Ruy Lopez. A6, bishop A4, knight F6, castles, B5, bishop B3, bishop C5 is called the Archangel variation. Here, white usually plays A4, rook B8, C3, D6. I'll just look at the analysis of the main line here. D4, bishop B6, knight A3. This is the classical Archangel. Black castles, white takes, black takes. Knight takes B5, bishop G4 is the classical line here. I'll run through the classical bishop C2 line and what that does. There are several alternatives here, including rook E1. This is the other major move, but let's just say bishop C2 for now. Bishop takes F3, G takes F3, knight H4, F4, and the Stockfish is very strong in pointing things which you wouldn't know necessarily. For instance, why can you not take on E5? Well, the idea of taking on E5 is the Stockfish, if you turn it on, the Stockfish NNE will immediately start pointing queen F4, H4, and this is dangerous for white. Okay, so if you take E takes D6, the engine will play knight E5, and it's threatening to invade on H3 and then hit on F3. So the only move is king D2, and now the engine finds the move rook F to D8. Beware, look with an engine. If this is knight C7, your analysis is wrong. Look what will happen. Bishop C5, rook A6, knight G6, and black invades on F4 with decisive attack. So this is only good for black. So you can check this with an engine. Obviously, this variation is good for black. Rook A4, C takes D6 works very well for black. Because of white's weak and kingside position, this line is not very good for white. If this ends in a draw, okay, it ends in a draw. This ends in perpetual. But take a look back at the position F4. The Stockfish will only take a matter of seconds to come up with this move, queen H4. But beware. While the engine is extraordinarily good at pinpointing exact equalization routes, strong moves that are the best for black, beware that this could be a long game. So obviously what it's saying is that if you do F takes C5, D takes C5, D5, then the engine will simply go, bam, G5. This is a remarkable move. If you take the knight, then the engine will play king H8. White has absolutely nothing that they can do to prevent G4 and G3 opening up the attack. The best the engine can come up with is knight D4, pawn takes, rook G8. Again, this continues to threaten G4 and G3. E5, bishop takes D4, and black is comfortably off. Rook A4, rook B8, bishop E3, take, recaptures with check, king H1, take, bishop D4 takes, and the game is completely equal. So black does very well. But what is the problem with Stockfish analysis? Be aware. Just as the chess.com engine is not reliable in the openings, it's simply intended to show you tactical errors. It doesn't say what the objective evaluations are in the opening. Stockfish is a little bit prejudiced toward black will equalize out of the opening, but beware. After queen H4, there is the possibility queen F3, which I faced before several times over the board playing. It's not very easy for black in the middle game. So if you play this line, which I'm showing you, king H1, this is not very easy to play in general. So I was showing this knight D8, rook G1, knight E6. White plays queen G4. Trading queens here with queen takes G4, rook takes G4 would only be to white's advantage because the bishop is locked out on B6. And so black is in for a long middle game fight. If you play queen F6, okay, B4, a few more moves, and the engine is still showing you, okay, 0, 0, 0, this is all. But okay, this is quite good for white, actually. Bishop B3, queen E7, knight A7. This threatens to go to C6, and the middle game develops. This is what I warn you is wrong with the Stockfish algorithm. It does not understand that the game usually will proceed to a middle game because it thinks if I can find the first few moves, I'm a strong player, says the Stockfish, and I'll be able to handle the middle game on my own. But for a human player, that's not a useful technology. If you do this is what Stockfish says you should do. It says 0-0, but watch the engine turn around its evaluation. Knight b5, take, queen g2, queen e4, queen g2, f, queen e2, queen d5, queen f2. The engine is already saying this is about a one pawn advantage for white. Take a look at a few more moves. This has been analyzed with Stockfish. This is the position. This is a position I arrive at. It's not very pleasant. So this is a middle game's position that is almost always guaranteed that every chess game goes into a middle game. You already know that the presumption of the chess.com engine is that every game is decided by errors. The presumption I use in the Stockfish is the game will proceed into a middle game and you're going to be on your own. So after queen d5, only white is pressing for advantage. Although I was able to work this out to some sort of a tenuous draw, the Archangel is not very easy for black in theory. So this was the line that I was looking at. And this position could easily, with stronger engines, be played to victory. Knight c7 does not win. Take queen d3, taking rook f5, h4, queen d4. Looks like it's going to even things out. Again, queen e7, queen e5, rook e1 takes. Looks like black would survive this endgame. Black would probably survive. d5 takes. This is going to be rook against bishop, which everybody knows is a draw. So this is the rook against bishop endgame. Well, black would survive this thing. But again, the Stockfish is very good at pinpointing the exact moves in the opening. But beware, the game goes into a middle game. So be aware that Stockfish engines are very useful in analyzing strong moves out of the opening. But don't be fooled. You're not guaranteed that you're just going to draw the game out of the opening or even be better with black. It's unlikely. Any questions here on the use of the Stockfish and why it's a good engine in the openings, but why using Stockfish requires a little bit of knowing its limitations? All right, finally, let me talk about the Leela and its strengths and weaknesses. Let's see, I have a chat request. Yes, you must. I believe that to analyze your game on chess.com, you need to be a member of chess.com. You need membership. Otherwise, you will not be able to analyze your game. So you do have to pay for the use of the engine. The chess.com engine is not a waste of time. It is a good one. But beware that it only is a tactics engine. It almost resembles an early Fritz or an early Shredder. In all of its actions, it only looks for direct solutions. So it will tell you, yeah, this was a bad move, or yeah, this was a very strong move, or yeah, you missed something. The Stockfish engine is very good for analyzing openings. It will tell you what the best moves are for black, but it never tells you, the Stockfish never guarantees its analysis. There's no insurance policy that goes with a Stockfish that says, oh gosh, I've analyzed all the openings and I'm at a draw. That's probably not it. The Stockfish is very, very strong, but the game always proceeds into the middle game. So if you're analyzing your openings with Stockfish and you have some questions on how to analyze, beware. This is the point about the Stockfish. Let me talk about the Leela next. Okay, I'll turn on the screen share again. What are the advantages of the Leela? So first, let me just show you the typical Leela game and how it plays. Let's see, I'm going to do Stockfish. And I'll put year 2017, and I'll do the opening as the Queen's Indian. All right, take a look at Alpha Zero Stockfish. This is from the 2017 match. Explosive findings by the Leela in the Queen's Indian. So it starts with knight f3, knight f6, d4, e6, c4, b6, g3, bishop b7, bishop g2, bishop e7, castles. But Leela resurrects a move that was not very popular. It's been known since the 1980s, this move. But it is only here does it get its actual airing. This move d5 is very interesting, especially in the way that Leela plays it. So e takes d5, knight h4, c6, knight f, c takes d5, knight takes d5, knight f5. Leela gets remarkably strong compensation for its pawn, and Stockfish never bounces back. So e takes d5, knight takes d5, knight c3 is the main position. I'll put this position on Leela as the next thing. But Stockfish's move knight takes c3 is probably not sufficient to equalize. After queen g4, g6, knight h6, king g7, b takes c3, Leela has a big advantage in development because the knight on b8 is stuck. And this is precisely what is the strength of the Leela program, that it understands the dynamics of the chess and that material matters insofar as you have a dynamic position, so far as you have tactics, so far as you have attacking possibilities. Stockfish is more materialistic and to its own misfortune. The bishop c8 attacks the queen, queen f4, queen d6. Stockfish must have thought it was fleeing easily and making a draw, but after queen a4, g5, Leela simply sacrifices the knight at h6 for remarkable compensation. So it plays rook e1, Stockfish takes, and now h4. Would you believe this is sound? Yes, this is sound and offers probably advantage to white. So Leela is starting to take the bishop on e7 and play bishop g5, f6, bishop e3. Would you believe the Stockfish doesn't understand middle game strategy? Stockfish is more of an openings engine. Bishop e3, bishop f5, rook d1, queen a3, queen c4, b5. Notice the Stockfish is doing all it can to hinder white's play, and there are no concrete threats yet. But now Leela comes up with a remarkable maneuver, after which Stockfish's game collapses. Take, takes, check on h4, king g6, and this remarkable move, queen h1. I do believe this position is quite lost for black. Knight on b8 is an extra knight, but it cannot get into the game. So this is a typical hallmark of Leela's play, positional play. So king g7, bishop e4, bishop g6, take, take. Queen h3 is an attack from all sides. Threats like bishop d4 and queen e6, bishop f6, and Leela comes up with this move, king g2, which says we'll open up the h file for the rook, rook h1, and then invade on h7. There's no practical defense here. Queen g8, Stockfish doing all it can to try to salvage the king's position. c4 is the next move. Physically, white is down a knight and 2 pawns, but black's position is quite hopeless. Taking would only open the b file, while rook e8 opens to bishop d4, takes, rook d4, and now the position collapses. Stockfish's position collapses. It is in a comic position where it cannot move a single piece. Neither the knight, nor the rook, nor the queen, they're all stuck. The rook d8, take, queen e6 was the end of the game. Now the Leela is threatening queen e5 check, which would end the game. So knight d7, rook d1, knight c5, rook 8, knight e6, rook a8 translates into an endgame that Leela would easily win. This is easily winning for the Leela. This it will win. This is one for white. Leela did win this game. Stockfish resigned. This is the advantage of the Leela engine. Now take a look. If we did all of these moves and we try to find the suggestion, the better move here is bishop f6. I'll stop the screen share and turn on the Leela engine. What would it say about the position? Here I have the position set up. So I'm going to play bishop f6, and Leela will be on ponder for a few seconds until it starts outputting the moves. Let's see. Give it a little bit of time. I do think it will take on d5 here. Will be its strategy. Leela, you have to let it ponder a few seconds. It doesn't have a go button like the Stockfish. It needs a little bit of time to ponder. Let's see what it will come up with here. So knight e4. This is not a move that I've seen in the past. If I take back the move and ask the Leela a different move, see what it comes up with. 94 may be interesting, but see if I come up with a different move here. It's frozen. If I played knight d5, what would Leela say? Remember, Leela is a fantastic middle games engine. While the Stockfish is the openings expert, Leela plays the middle games. And it will be remarkably strong at generating ideas that lead the game into a middle game, not necessarily things that lead the game in an opening sequence to a draw. So while the Stockfish will give you all the good answers with black, Leela plays white, and very, very unmistakably. I mean, I've analyzed knight d5 with Leela before. Let's see if it can come up with some strategy. Okay, so we're going to go bishop f4. The Leela will start giving us a little bit of information here. Knight d7, we'll play knight d6. Bishop a6 attacks the rook e1. Bishop b2, the Leela says bishop d5. Notice how strong it is in the middle game. And it's saying that white obtains great middle game chances. This is not something that Stockfish understands. If you're analyzing middle game positions, turn on the Leela. It is much deeper in the middle games than the Stockfish. Although they're rated about the same, look what it's gotten out of the opening. A nice position where it has all the attacking prospects. So it's saying to trade. The Leela says to trade, to play rook e1. I'm not sure. The game either peters in a draw or white maintains chances of victory. I'm not sure which it is. Leela will be able to play this to advantage probably with white. Black's position is difficult to hold here. So again, Leela, great strengths in the middle game. If you're interested in looking at options of how to play the middle game and how to obtain lasting pressure, Leela is your choice. Stockfish knows how to reach a draw, but Leela certainly knows how to reach a game, which is, to me, a very important skill. So I'm playing against it. I'm just following its main line. At this point, it looks like the game will end in draw, but the Leela is still maintaining pressure, is still keeping black up at night, essentially looking for equalizational paths. So black has a lot of work to do in the Queen's Indian based on the Leela's game. And look, it's slowly reaching advantage with the white pieces. Now it says it's about half a pawn with white, or even a pawn, and Leela has reached a point where it thinks that white is going to win the game. Well, we'll leave it up to that. I'll stop the screen share here. Last point, for those who are 1800 or above, put all of your 1500 above, put all of your games through the chess.com engine. It will show you the tactical errors. If you study the opening, Stockfish or Leela are very good, but you have to be aware of what you're looking for and what exactly you're looking for. Let me give you a practical example of opening study with an engine that has been that I've been working on this line for many years, and I can share a little bit of the results in this line. It's the semi-Slav, the Botvinnik semi-Slav. So I'll put this thing again on screen share. You have to know the nature of the position or the nature of the task in order to be a master of the engine, that it doesn't output to you some sort of things which are not realistic or not true. Have a little bit of familiarity with with the openings that you study. Don't just study random openings, but ones that interest you. If you're studying random openings, yeah, you can study it with any engine. But if these are openings you have some experience, or if these are openings which you play, using an engine will give you a very good sense of where your game is headed. So here we go. I'll show you a line that has befuddled me for ages. It is the semi-Slav, the Botvinnik semi-Slav. D4, D5, C4, C6, knight f3, knight f6, knight c3, e6, bishop g5. This is called the Botvinnik. This is the bishop g5 line. He takes c4 is called the Botvinnik variation. E4, b5, e5, h6, bishop h4, g5, takes, bishop takes g5, knight to d7. There is an alternative here, bishop e7, which I'll discuss. But generally, what does knight to d7 do? Well, take a look. G3, bishop b7, bishop g2, queen b6, takes, castles, c5. At this point, I will show you the original variants of this opening. We now know that there are two moves here. There's the move d5 and there's the move d takes c5, and both of these are very interesting. So concerning d5, the long line that has been known is that b4 is met by rook b1, queen a6 is met by d takes c6, bishop g2 is met by e7. If you turn on the Stockfish NNUE, bishop f1 is usually met up by king f1. It's been known for many ages, the game Kramnik-Topalov, queen d5, bishop takes, pawn takes, bishop d3, leads to a draw, in fact. Knight e4 takes, check, king c7, bishop f4, king b6, knight c4, king b5, knight d6, king b8, I'll promote to queen, rook takes d8, a4, pawn takes, bishop c2 is indeed a draw. A4, bishop takes c4, knight c4, king b5, knight d6 is a perpetual. So this is a main line. What happens via king f1, though, has been known only since the engines have started looking at these. And the main line here is bishop e7, fe, rook to g8, knight e4, rook g5, knight takes g5, rook e8, queen d5, rook takes c7, king g1. There have been many postal games, hundreds of games played in this position, and it seems to be safe for black. But let me just show you what it usually leads to. h4, rook e5, queen takes, knight takes, rook e8. This is one of the key positions, I think, of the Botvinnik semi-Slav, and it is holding. My main line here is rook a1, rook a8, king f1, king c6, h5. Notice this protected pass pawn on the h file, which makes black's life kind of difficult. So rook h8 will be played, g4, 5, and white plays f3, takes, and now black has choices. Knight f6 does draw, but it's a bit dodgy. Check, king b5 takes, h6, king b3, g5 takes, rook f7, c4, h7, c3, g6, c2, rook f2. It looks like white has won the game. They're going to take on c2 and then play g7, but black does draw with rook f8. Take, and black delivers perpetual, or so it appears. But more sound is probably rook g8, b3, rook g4, rook a7, and black will draw this game, despite a bit of inconvenience. This is slightly inconvenient. You're going to have to be careful not to lose the knight for the pawn and then lose the game. But I think black is going to draw this. So this is my main line. I think black will draw. So my main point here, yeah, this is a draw. My main point, how does this thing work in terms of the endgames? Be aware, the rooks and knights. This is a typical pattern in the Botvinnik semi-Slav, rooks and knights. Why is this important? Because white could force this kind of thing in a variety of ways. Obviously, if you did this, white could play d takes c5, and this is kind of interesting. Knight takes c5, queen e2, bishop takes g2, king g2 will again force the rooks and knights. Bishop h6 takes, rook d1, rook takes d1, knight takes d1, rook takes f6, h4. Remember this structure. The protected h-pawn, the protected pass pawn on h4 causes headaches, and black needs to be very careful concerning how they equalize the game. So again, if this is a random opening and you're studying it, one thing, but if you have a little bit of experience, you'll be able to know what kinds of positions you're getting into. So queen c6 usually is not the move here. The engine says knight d3, b3, king c7, no, sorry. Queen e4, says my engine. King c7, b3, take, 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 take. And this is a little bit unpleasant. h5, obviously rook h6, rook h1, king c5, and this is an unpleasant position. Knight e3, the main move here, if this threatens knight g4, so you have to go f5. Obviously white probably plays something like king f3, c3, rook h4, knight e5 check. You could also play this, probably knight e5 check, king e2, rook h7. H6, king d6, says the engine. It's saying 0-0, but it's a little bit unpleasant. What other moves are there for black? You can also play e5, rook c4, king b5, rook takes c3, e4, king e2, rook h5. You probably survive, although this is not very pleasant. f4, knight d1, takes, takes. At first looks like a bad position because the pawn will be lost, but it's actually holding, I think. King e3, rook g5, check, king b4, knight e2, a5. I'm concerned with king d4, but I think the engine will have a response to it. Rook to b8, king a3. Knight c3 probably. Knight e6, and the engine will draw like this. Any questions here? So this is what you're getting into if you play the semi-Slav in this variation. You need to know rooks and knights, and with engines you will get greater familiarity of the structures that lead into the middle game and into the end game, like this position. It's unpleasant, but you'd have to deal with it. Secondly, okay, bishop e7. Okay, all right, let's take a look at this. Takes, 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 takes. g3, knight a6, bishop g2, bishop b7. Will this again lead to rooks and knights? You bet. Knight e4, queen e7, castles, castles, h4, c5, a4, b4, queen e2, rook d4, rook f to d1, bishop d5. Will this again lead to rooks and knights? Take a look. Take, take, knight d2, d3, queen g4, f5, queen f4. Obviously, probably black plays rook d8 as the engine suggests. Knight c4, queen c7, takes, 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 takes. And again, we struggle with the rooks and knights. Knight c5. Probably f3 will be played. Probably king d7, h6. No, not king d7, king d8, I'm sure. h6, king e7, h7, rook d8, king f2, king f7, a5, king g7, rook h1, rook h8. And again, we struggle with the rooks and knights. King e3 takes, takes, takes. And again, a struggle for life here. King d4, knight b3, king takes d3, and black has to be very careful here. King g6, a6, knight c5, king d4, knight takes a6, king e5, knight c5, king d6, knight b3, king takes, and this is probably going to end up in a draw. But it's the struggle. So once you begin to study with engines, you will have a much better sense of where your openings are headed. And the openings are an ongoing challenge in analyzing. There's so many variations, it's impossible to figure out all of them. But again, I know that one of the main challenges in the Botvinnik semi-Slav is not that you lose by force, which was something that was believed ages ago. It was believed, moves like queen d5 won. An engine like the Deep Fritz thought this almost won, and it's been worked out to a draw. But the fact that the moves like bishop e7 lead to a small but somewhat tangible plus for white in the rooks and knights endgames. So the openings evolve and the engines evolve, but beware, that you have to know what the engine is trying to do or what its characteristics are, where the Leela is very good at finding middle game variations and good at using small advantages, the Stockfish good at equalizing, and other engines are very strong merely looking at tactics. So let me stop here. Any questions? Feel free to write in chat any questions, or if you would like to, or you can ask any questions. Again, remember that chess is an ongoing struggle. There's never going to be an end of the game or certain knowledge of anything, but engines help us to determine the answers. And if you put your games and your openings through an engine, even if you're rated 1500, you will have a vastly better sense of the chess game. The engines almost illumine all of the problems of our opening, and engines such as Leela are even good at looking at middle games. Do I recommend paying for chess.com to use the engine? Well, I do, because otherwise your only other option would be to to subscribe. Well, you can download Stockfish for free. I'll do a screen share again. Downloads the download Stockfish. Download, if you put download Stockfish 13, Stockfish 13, download Stockfish 13, an open source engine. There you go. You'll be able to download the Stockfish BMI, the Stockfish AVX2, 64-bit. My Stockfish is BMI 2. No, yeah. So you will be able to see how to download it, and it's essentially for free. So you can, I'll end the screen share. You can download Stockfish for free. You can download in Lead Chess. The Stockfish 13 in Lead Chess is a very good engine. It is entirely reliable. Stockfish 13 in Lead Chess is completely reliable. Leela is a little bit flaky in terms of its platforms. If you download LC0, I'll do the screen share again.
So then for the Stockfish, which one would you recommend?
The 13, the with NNUE, Stockfish 13 with NNUE.
Okay.
Let me see. Stockfish 13 with NNUE is the best one to go. My engine uses Stockfish BMI 2. Downloading Leela is a little bit flaky. LC0, it's called LC0 download. If you type in LC0 download, it will tell you download Leela, Chess 0. And there are various engines which you can try. Mine was worked for this one, CUDNN was the one. You'd have to figure it out with your hardware. It's a little bit flaky. If it doesn't work, then try a different engine until you've detected ones that works for you. But again, Leela is a very strong engine for analyzing middle games. Stockfish, the certain best for the openings. Is it recommended to study multiple openings or thoroughly study a lot of lines of a specific openings? This is an important question. The answer depends on whether you find useful to play the same opening over and over and over, or you want to vary your openings and see if you can simply surprise your opponents with something that is new. So I think that both approaches are possible. with black, I tend to like to play the certain openings that I usually play. I mean, I have a repertoire. I will play usually e5 against e4, and with d4 I'll play the Slav. But with white, I'll play virtually anything. So it's a mixed answer, I would say. While with black, I like to reach certain openings which I've studied comfortably into the many variations. With white, I'll play d4, I'll play e4, even an occasional I'll venture c4. I like variety with white. On the other hand, if you like something like the London system with white, go for it, because it's a very good opening. And if you studied your London system with white, you have a lifetime of chess. Does that answer the question? All right. Yeah, or you like the Rui. You like the Rui with white. Okay, well, study the Rui. Maybe study something like study some sort of Sicilians, such as maybe you want to do sideline Sicilians. Maybe you want to study the Alpine Sicilian, or the here's a fascinating. I'll share the Alpine Sicilian. My findings in the Alpine Sicilian. The elephant is fascinating. This is fascinating. E4, C5, it's a slightly different move order, but this is the main position of the elephant. You can also get it, you can also get the same position through this order. But where does this lead? Well, okay, this is the same position. Bishop C4, knight B6, bishop B3. It is fascinating. Takes, castles, bishop g4 is a position. The move that I came up with instead of h3, which was played by Gawain Jones, I came up with rook e1 without h3, and this has some interest to it. Castles a4, knight d7 usually is the line. Knight a3 attacks the pawn at c4, necessary to play knight e5. Rook e3 takes, and it looks like black's position is collapsing on c4. Black has to play queen h6, queen e2, and this very strange sacrificial line. White obtains two pieces for the rook, and the position is remarkably complicated. So I felt like this was better for white, but I wasn't able to win the game. This is for sure better for white. This was the end game I came up with in the Alpine. And I don't know if it wins or not. White has piece for 3 pawns, c4, d4, bishop f4, knight b5, rook f8, a5, king d3. But it's fascinating. White is certainly much better here, but you will only get here if you know how this all works with rook e1. If you knew rook e1, castles a4, you need to know a4, knight d7, knight a3, knight e5, and rook e3. And if you keep analyzing like this, the Alpine, you'll easily obtain advantage out of it. You will easily be able to obtain advantage out of the Alpine with white. So if your view is, play many openings, but have something prepared in each of them. Keep working on your openings with an engine, and you'll be able to always surprise your opponent. With white, I'll play almost anything. And especially, openings like the London system, which are played by Magnus Carlsen, are remarkably efficient in obtaining opening advantage with white. Any other questions? So do put all of your games through an engine. That is my first and most important recommendation. Every game you play, put it through an engine. It will help you greatly recognize the tactical flaws in your game. This was the game I played yesterday. My opponent played very well. They equalized the game, but certainly neither I nor my opponent saw the firm equalization path by which the bishop returned to c8. Only an engine would be able to show you that. If you find that kind of a thing, gosh, you're a very strong player. But engines definitely clarify all the middle game strategies, and they're even good for studying. They're even good for studying openings in middle games. they'll just give you an incredibly different sense of how you can keep working on chess and improving your game. You just have to know which to use. If you like the Leela, download the Leela. If it's the Stockfish, download Stockfish. If you're happy with chess.com engine, or you're going to use the Stockfish on Lead Chess, do it. Use the engines. Use them. They're your best tool of seeing beyond what you see into something that you have not seen, or something you haven't read, or something that you just wouldn't know for sure. Books only give you so much, and analyzing your own games with an engine may just be just as much as going to a bookstore and reading some book on the elephant. Just put it through an engine, look at its main line, what it's saying is the main line in each position, and you already will be a little bit informed about it, as opposed to reading a book. The first lines of an engine and the first lines that it gives, something like the Stockfish, the first line it gives in first choice lines may already be something that's very interesting. I derived this whole line in the elephant simply by looking at the first line choices that the engine was giving. Simple as that. I wasn't reading any books. I wasn't referring to databases. I was just looking at what the engine says it would do move by move, how it would play the game. And it's fascinating that white obtains a very good position out of the elephant, for instance, as far as I can see. Any other questions? Feel free to type in chat. Okay, I'm glad it helped. I'm glad. Feel free to type in chat. Again, my recommendation is books will tell you, canned advice or this and that, but an engine, when it starts playing chess, will be able to give you the what would it do? Like Leela will always get the game into a middle game. It's not going to be, if you study with a Leela, it's not going to be that the game ends in 0-0 or a firm draw out of the opening. The Leela will always have some way of proceeding with the game and getting the game going, even if it's very slowly and painstakingly, like you saw in the Queen's Indian. The same way the Stockfish will give you very strong answers with black, even if these do not fully equalize the game. I showed you that neither in the Botvinnik Semislav nor in my Rui is there firm equalization or equality out of the opening, but the Stockfish is doing the best it can to show you objective answers. And that will help you with your opening study. And then, if you simply analyze random openings, the engine, just follow the engine's first choice moves, and you will probably be able to obtain very, very interesting answers out of the opening, as opposed to reading the canned databases and not knowing what's going on. Let me show you let me share the screen for one last time here. The Botvinnik Semislav, a recent discovery of mine. Okay. What happens with this move? G3, knight a6, bishop g2, bishop b7. Put this through an engine. Do not trust the databases. A4, what will happen in this position? Well, okay, castles, take. The only good move here is the one that is shown by the engine. Look what it's showing you. E5, D5. Knight C5 is playable, as the engine will show you, but take a look at this beauty. Knight B4. The engine says +4, but take a look at what's going on here. King B6, Queen A4. Is white checkmating black? Knight D3, King D2, check. King C3, Queen takes B2, check. King takes C4, Rook C8, check. King D3, and now the engine is showing you this is 0-0. E4, white would find it difficult to take the pawn, so King E3, Rook C3, Knight C3, Queen C3, King takes C4, F5. Again, taking the pawn is too dangerous, so King F2, Queen D2, King F3 required, King D3, King F4, Queen D2 leads to perpetual check. King F5 is not possible. Queen takes D5 with checkmate. So this is the sort of thing that is priceless. Only an engine would be able to give you these kinds of variations and they're all out there. Simply, if you analyze the first choice of an engine, you'll discover all sorts of very, very fun facts about the opening that you'll be able to use in practice as well. If anything, you'll be entertained by the engine. Any other questions here? All right, I'm done here.
Okay, so thank you. So if there are no questions, I think we're done then. Any questions from anyone before we wrap it up?
Oh, what is the next round?
Oh, the next round is at 5 p.m.
Okay, bye.
Okay, all right, bye everyone. Thank you so much again, Michael.
Thank you.
All right, so see you later.